Yesterday, Bob Iger, CEO of the Walt Disney Company, sat down for an interview, but it was not the type that you might have expected from a CEO facing a proxy battle and a Nelson Peltz town hall coming up later tomorrow. Folks, we're going to tell you why Bob Iger sidestepped the big problems of his company and why that might or might not be a good thing. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we are here to get you aboard that train that goes ahead of the culture curve, explaining the world around you through entertainment. It is what we do each and every day. And Vash, it was not only a Super Tuesday yesterday in terms of politics, but it was a Super Tuesday in terms of finding out what's going on with the Walt Disney Company. Bob Iger sat down and he acted very sheepish, I would say. Not very many specifics, a very long, perhaps an hour conversation that was provided. We covered it live here on the show. But Vash, Bob Iger was not there to give granular resolution as to what the company's going to do. He spoke in platitudes. He spoke in vagities. What did you make of the conversation that Bob Iger had yesterday?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty weak considering that Nelson Peltz in his white paper released the night before actually called him out on, hey, you have these grandiose ideas, you have these vagaries, but there's no detail explaining what you're actually going to do to turn this company around. And so they were very critical in many of those pages there of that 133 page document or so. And here's what Bob Iger, he gets in front of Morgan Stanley Technology Media Telecom Conference, right? He's got the whole platform, basically softball questions that are assigned to him in advance, and he doesn't extrapolate on anything. In fact, he adds
home runs,
more.
Right, Bash? That's why you get tossed a softball. Is you're supposed to hit a home run,
right?
And
exactly.
How do you miss? How do you miss when you probably already knew what those questions were going to be? Take a look at what Braden from Mickey Views has to say.
Yes. Braden
says, and I don't think Braden is, he's not pulling for either side. He's just a straight reporter, gives his opinion. But Disney CEO Bob Iger says they could do, might do, maybe should do a new thing to be determined. That was how that talk felt. But there's an important thing to discuss here, Vash, and that is,
yes,
Bob Iger came out with a particular strategy. He could have given us high-resolution understanding of what his response is to Nelson Peltz. And trust me, I think Nelson Peltz is going to give us his take on moving that company, the Walt Disney Company, back into the middle. He's going to do that tomorrow, bringing it to the sensible center. Bob Iger, though, spoke very esoterically. And so there's two ways to look at that. The first way you might look at it, especially if you're a viewer of this channel, part of this community, you might say, well, he's running scared, he's timid, he's sheepish, he doesn't know what to say, he doesn't know what to do, he can't defend the record of the company. Fair enough. The other way you might look at this is Bob Iger needs to survive past this next board vote. Why make any news? Why give any specifics that Nelson Peltz might be able to bat down? Instead, speak in utter generalities and stay exactly to the script of pixie dust. Vash, which way do you think would have worked better? Should he have been more specific, or was this enough to say, yeah, we've got enough land to do lots of things one day, somehow, somewhere?
Yeah, I think Iger has previously been a showman in this whole thing, right? He's previously, I remember when coming right out of the Chapek era, having taken the job basically over a weekend, right, and taking away from Chapek, getting into the hot seat as now the reinstated CEO, right before that earnings call that he had back in 2023 there in the very first part of that, he gets on the phone with Josh Giamaro, or meets with him apparently, and says, hey, let's go ahead and do some Avatar stuff. So the headline that they would have maybe had that whole process went down would have been, hey, newly instated Iger, taking the reins from Chapek, demonstrates this whole earnings call, right, and the company's not doing so well. That would have been roughly the headline right there. Instead, he goes forward and says, hey, Avatar for Disneyland, and that's the headline. That's the press.
Right, and all these places ran with it. Yeah,
right.
Vash, and you've got something to share, I believe. Let me go ahead and make that available. But Vash, if there are folks out there thinking that they're going to get all of Pandora from Animal Kingdom thrown into Disneyland, I think they are sorely either desperate for clicks or they are going to be sorely disappointed and disappoint their readers and viewers and listeners, because I don't think that's going to happen. I think that, again, Bob Iger speaks purposefully in a rather vague way.
Yes.
And when he says you're going to get an Avatar land, number one, I think he probably misspoke, because he also referred to theme parks as lands at one point. And then two, there's no specifics here whatsoever. So, make of that what you will. Vash, do you think there's actually going to be an Avatar land, or was this another part of what should be a criticism about this conversation, where I don't know what to believe out of this on any of the stuff that you could actually hang your hat on?
I think initially, I think Iger did have ambitions to really invest with the Avatar brand, especially coming out of.
Where would it go, Vash?
What was it?
Where would it go in Disneyland?
Well, there is about a 13-acre plot. That's just kind of like the northeast, right above Tomorrowland, right there. Now you have to clear up some stuff.
Destruction of Walt's legacy, which maybe that's okay. Maybe Autopia needs to go, but Vash, even if they did that, given the sight lines, do you want to go in front of or walk on Main Street and you can see floating rocks in the background? I don't think, in other words, the scope and scale can't be replicated. And so I think people are just setting themselves up for great disappointment.
Right. I mean, they would have had to transform Pandorans in a certain way. And look, now with the sequels coming out, maybe you base it in that direction. As we know with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, they love to base things on sequels, right? You would have had to change some things for sure. But I think there was maybe, a time when it was like, well, maybe we can go ahead and do this, especially because the sequels was so popular. But I think when Iger realized the financial situation was as dire as it was, and for the Walt Disney Company in general, I think he kind of was like, oh, maybe I bit off a little bit more than I knew I was going to chew. We can see right here, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. Right. Maybe that at one point was going to be more ambitious, and they kind of scaled back as the company's finances became more in view here.
So, Vash, this is why I think people should temper their expectations greatly. Is because this is what this is taken off on Twitter/X from Bre'r Oswald. Over 100,000 views on this. Yeah. And I think it speaks to the degradation of Walt Disney Imagineering. And it's why, unless James Cameron is absolutely involved in the Avatar, whatever it's going to be in Disneyland, you say 13 acres. It's still, even if you were to destroy everything that's in the northeast quadrant of Disneyland proper and plop that in, right. It's still a tight fit. It's still a kind of an awkwardly placed thing. And, I would hope they could pull off another Cars Land, but I want James Cameron involved because I don't see the talent there. Take a look at this. Sure. This is a comparison right now of what Splash Mountain looked like to what it looks like now. And if you thought the Hobby Lobby Flower Aisle Explosion, if you thought Rainforest Cafe Adventure, if you thought these monikers that we had given it to have fun at how bad it looks, if you thought those were offensive, well, you haven't heard anything yet on what people are calling this, because that is some serious brown water. And we have gone from colorful browns and greens to Deliverance in a septic tank. And it looks terrible. And not only that, Vash, but my gosh. So they removed the briar patch, which was essentially a good way of hiding the tracks, right? That holds the logs in. Well, now the briar patch is gone. So now you just see exposed metal and walkways that stick out. And I don't think that they're going to cover that stuff up. I think this is fairly well done now. They're removing the scaffolding and all of that. But this might be why there are some folks out there, Vash, who say, you know what? I think I'll pass on Avatar. I think I'll pass on all this stuff that Iger says will be coming sometime in the future, but we won't tell you when, we won't tell you how, we won't tell you the budget, we won't tell you anything about it. We'll just tell you we have enough land to do stuff. Which is like, well, good, I've got enough land to do stuff too, Bob. But,
Well, you can see even in this statement right here, he says, he kind of trips over the word, not this part, but this guy right here. He says we're going to put a second one in California. Previously, he said
that's
Disneyland.
The problem.
Right.
Because when he says we're going to put a second one in Disneyland, this is the problem with this kind of stuff, and it might work, Vash. That's the important part of what we're saying here, folks.
Yeah.
This may work for the mainstream because they'll just cover it. This may work for the pixie dusters. Yep. But you're not here to find out just what might work. We go beyond that. The problem is that when Bob says we're going to put another one in Disneyland, he's equating what they're going to do with sort of a clone of what's in Animal Kingdom. And what you and I are suggesting, Vash, is that's not going to happen.
Right.
It physically can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a way to maybe physically make something like it happen, but here's the thing. Here's what's likely to happen. What's likely to happen is this might end up going into DCA. Here's the thing. A lot of people are saying, well, maybe Disneyland Forward, right? But Disneyland Forward still has to get through the approval process, and you have to develop that land, and you have to build a parking structure. I mean, add maybe 1-2 years onto that date now. And remember, the original Avatar in Pandora and Animal Kingdom broke ground, I believe, in January 2014, right? That thing didn't open until 2017. Add 2 more years onto that. That's 5 years we're talking right there.
That's optimistic. If Disneyland Forward is approved, I'm going to tell you. And if Avatar is part of Disneyland Forward, I bet you wouldn't see it for a decade.
Oh, yeah. I mean, very. That is honestly.
How much faster can you build in Florida, especially when Disney did not have any regulations they had to adhere to for Florida? Remember, because they had their own government at that time. How much faster could Disney build Avatar Land there versus what they'll do in California? Well, good luck with your floating rocks in California. Good luck with those regulations.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, you're exactly right. And there's very strict height restrictions in the area that they want to build to the west of these 2 parks right here. So obviously that has to be taken into account. Also, too, I mean, if you really extrapolate this out, right? They are saying that they're going to spend about $1.9 billion on Disneyland Forward projects in the next 10 years. It's like, okay, well that's a big number, right? Well, not really. When you consider that the original Pandora was. Pro, I wanted to get kind of this from you. I've heard estimates anywhere between 700 million to 900 million. Is that kind of correct there?
You're talking about the Animal Kingdom?
Animal Kingdom version of Pandora, yeah.
Oh, I think it exceeded that. I think it went over budget. That may have been what was given in the beginning, but I'm if I remember correctly, somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 billion is what it ended up at.
Whoa, that's significantly more because here's the thing, with inflation and everything like that, if you want an Avatar-like experience out in California, that's probably with that estimate there, 1.5, maybe 1.6. I had about 1.2, 1.1. Still, though, if you're only getting $1.9 billion in Disneyland Forward investment for the next 10 years, that's basically all you're getting. So and that's for the next 10 years. Well,
let's do it this way, Vash. Watch this. So folks could argue with us, right? They might say, oh, well, it's less. It's 700 million. Folks might argue and say, oh, it's more. It's 1.5 billion.
Sure.
Okay, we know what Galaxy's Edge cost, essentially, in both areas, right? 1.1, 1.2 billion, somewhere around there.
Yep.
Which one is more impressive, Galaxy's Edge or Pandora?
I think a lot of people would say that Pandora is a little bit more impressive, right?
Which one's more impressive in terms of what it looks like it might have cost?
I would say Pandora.
Yeah, those floating rocks don't come cheap, I'll tell you that. You see any giant floating rocks constructed with novel engineering in Galaxy's Edge? No, you don't see that. So
no.
You figure out the price tag, folks, and you add inflation. Vash, you're exactly right. So let's talk about what he needed to do, though, Vash. Let's talk about what he needed to do. Nelson Peltz, this is an article out on thatparkplace.com, which is rapidly becoming the premier website for entertainment news under John Trent.
Absolutely.
I just saw the other day, searched for an item, and That Park Place was at the top spots on Google News. So, but That Park Place reporting that Nelson Peltz's Trian white papers has red all over it. And what that means is that Nelson Peltz is coming after Bob Iger with a fidelity and a density of data that I don't think Disney was anticipating. And that's why I think Bob Iger's response may have not been the right way to handle this, because Peltz is going to get a chance now to pounce on Iger not having been more credible in the kinds of things he was claiming. So you and I mean, we could go through a dozen things that Iger talked about.
Yeah. We
don't just have to do Pandora. There's a dozen of these.
Right.
And they're all sort of the same. They're all, like, okay, Epic Universe. Not Epic Universe, I'm sorry, Epic Games.
Yeah.
Bob Iger comes out and says, we're going to have an entirely new mode for Fortnite that's going to be Disney. And it's going to be coming out in several years.
Right.
And we didn't pay for it. And you hear all that and you say, well, no, wait a minute. You invested $1.5 billion in the company. What do you mean you didn't spend anything on it? What do you mean they're paying for it? You spent $1.5 billion investing in their company. That's the expenditure. All that kind of stuff, right? Where you just have to shake your head and say, what is this gibberish that is coming out of this man's mouth? So here, let me read just briefly this article, and I want to get your take on that, Vash.
Please.
On March 4th, a long-awaited comprehensive document was unleashed in the ongoing proxy battle between Bob Iger's Walt Disney Company and Nelson Peltz's Trian partners. As we've noted in the past here in our research of how Peltz, for whom this is not his first corporate rodeo, goes about his process of explaining to voting shareholders how he sees things and why he and his group are a good choice to fix the company's problems, the issuance of what is known as a white paper, a comprehensive report on the subject, companies past, present, and their two alternative futures with Trian's help and without. This is a 132-page epic document. And of course, I'm not going to attempt to delve into the details in this relatively short and I hope palatable article. I very, very strongly encourage you to go read it for yourself. And it goes on to talk about what's in that document. Vash, it's a 132-page tour de force.
Yes.
Stuff that, we cover this every day. I think we and That Park Place, we cover Disney at a level you just don't find anywhere else.
No.
And we pride ourselves on that. And this paper goes way farther than what we even cover. It probably had a cost of something like $500 million. It probably had a team of like 6 experts working for, I don't know, maybe 7-8 months to get all of this data out. And Bob Iger comes out in response to that and speaks in platitudes and barely responds to it. And that sets up Nelson Peltz tomorrow. If you're watching this on Wednesday, folks, it sets up Nelson Peltz to come out and just lambast him. So, Vash, what do you think we're looking to see now with Bob Iger taking the strategy of telling us all these wonderful things that might, could, maybe, should, would happen, but there's no specificity on any of it?
I think we get some announcements at D213 Expo. They're already talking about, cutting some, I guess Bob Iger's, the other headlines were that talking about cutting some films, cutting some other stuff. Obviously, we know that Sean Bailey has been replaced.
What films did he? Hey, let's do it again, Vash. What films did he say they had cut?
See, that's the thing, right? There's no specificity added to it. And here's the thing: this is at a time.
Vash, do we follow the tax filings and all of the production names and all of those entities? We cover that on this channel and That Park Place, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we would have known had stuff been cut, right?
Right.
So at best, he's talking about somebody wrote down on a napkin, let's make this kind of a movie, and they thought about it, and he said, nah, we're not going to do it. Because even Snow White, ladies and gentlemen, even Snow White and the 7 dirty CGI hippies who've now become CGI monstrosities, even that was delayed but not cut.
Yes.
So what is it, Bob? What did you cut, Bob? But it makes the headlines. And that's back to it, Vash.
That's it.
That's the
It's
headlines.
all about the optics. It's all about what we could, might, maybe, should do, And here's the thing, okay? I'll take you through this really, really fast. Go ahead and share my screen one more time here, right? This is from the white paper that you were just talking about right now that Nelson Peltz released. An amazing document, but right here on page 119 it says Disney World in Orlando contributes approximately 1/3 of Disney's operating income. 1/3.
Hold on. Whoa, Vash.
Yes.
Say that again, because people have heard me refer to Walt Disney World as the crown jewel of the entire Disney portfolio. Say it again, please.
Yes. Disney World in Orlando, the one resort, Disney World in Orlando contributes approximately 1/3 of Disney's, the company's, operating income, i.e. profit. Okay? The profit. And people doubt this claim.
You might invest in that kind of a thing, wouldn't you, Vash? You would
think so, right?
You might protect that with everything you have. That ought to be your precious baby that you don't let anything come near it.
You can see right here. This is the App Economy Insights right here. Okay, you can see all these numbers, right? These are all that's going in, right? This is all the revenue that they're generating from all across the Walt Disney Company. You got linear networks here, you got DTC, you've got consumer sales, licensing, studio, obviously, consumer products, parks, you got all this stuff, right?
Now, hold up for a second, Vash. Go back over to the Disney parks. Tributary.
Yes.
I want people to understand, because I'm so appreciative of you bringing this up. I didn't know you were going to go here.
Oh, yeah.
When we talk about Disney World is the crown jewel.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about the interesting ways that they talk about parks and experiences, Vash, for Disney World to be 1/3 of the total incoming revenue for the Walt Disney Company,
yes,
Disney World's revenue has to be like it has to be such a huge portion of parks and experiences that you might as well name parks and experiences Disney World and a few other things.
Yes.
And so then when they say, this is what drives me. Okay. When they say, we're going to invest, we're going to turbocharge Disney parks and experiences, we're going to turbocharge it. When they say that, and they say we're going to spend $60 billion over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And then you find out that what that means is they're going to spend on the Chinese parks that basically make no money.
Yep.
And they're going to spend on the cruise lines, which is fine.
Yep.
What that means is that the thing that probably makes up about 90% of your Disney parks and experiences is getting itty bitty little 5% of all that investment, because Bob is a moron who is so strapped to his legacy that he can't say, this is where the money is, put it in this thing and drive it, supercharge this thing.
Here's the thing. I've seen these graphs for years now. Look at all the numbers going in, right? Over here, that's how much it costs to do what they want to do in all these other segments, right? $19 billion in cost, expenditures, all that kind of stuff, right? You can see right here, linear is still making a little bit of money, but DTC obviously isn't. Content obviously isn't. By the way, content, that's the studio, by the way. So that's still kind of under, and it hasn't, I think, posted a profit since the Chapek era.
Disney World is subsidizing the studios. That's what we're saying.
Yes, right here, experiences, $3.1 billion. Parks, $2.4 billion is the majority of your operating income, or your, that's the terminology used for profit, right?
And how much, Vash? How much of that is Disney World?
And, by
it has to be huge to carry the entire company by a third.
It has to be over half. I mean, this is an immense amount of money here.
Rename it. Call it Disney World and other stuff. That should be the new name of Disney Parks and Experiences. Disney World and some other things.
You go back to the white paper on page 118. He asks, how will this capital expenditure be allocated by park? What is the expected annual cadence of the spend? If the investment is back-end weighted over a decade, why commit to it now? What is the target return to investors so they can hold you accountable? Out of the 12 board members, here's the crazy thing, Pro.
Vash, you are wrong, sir. Did you not listen to Bob? Did you not read the headlines from the Bob conference? Bob said they have enough land to build 7 theme parks. Shut up and accept that as being something substantial. How dare you want actual specifics? They have enough land to build 7 theme parks.
Oh,
They have enough land to build shuttle services to the moon, Vash. Don't question it.
I love the claim too. We have land in all of our resorts around the world. Oh, really? Hong Kong has land? Oh, I don't know if Hong Kong has land. Maybe you want to step back on that one, Bob Iger.
What that land was taken for? I don't know.
Here's the thing. Okay, 12 board members. You have 12 board members. A third of your profit comes from one resort, much less the entire Parks and Resorts division, or the Experiences division as it's known by now. Okay, you have 12 board members. How many? How many board members have any theme park experience whatsoever? Go ahead.
Well, if we get Jay Rasulo, we'll have at least one on the board, but I don't know that that's going to happen.
Right.
Bob's going to count though. Bob gets to count. We'll be fair to Bobby. Bobby is on the board. Bobby gets to count as someone with theme park experience.
Well, I can tell you right now, out of all of the qualifications of the board members, from the CEO of GM, or the chairman of Nike, or, I don't know, technology, pharmaceutical, whatever, we have 0 board members that have any theme park experience, and yet all of your profit for all of your pet projects is all coming coming from experiences, which now we're going to be spending less on over the next 10 years than we did before.
Well, Vash, that makes a lot of sense to me because it seems that Bob Iger likes to set all kinds of stipulations for Nelson Peltz, for Jay Rasulo, but they don't like to live under those same guidelines. And that might be why we're getting some responses, such as this. This being carried, of course, by Deadline. Nelson Peltz slams Disney from 2019 Fox deal to planned sports streaming JV as proxy battle rages. This by Jill Goldsmith. Folks, I recommend you go check out this article on Deadline. It goes on to talk about just how impressive the 133 pages are. I mean, honestly, this will take us 2 weeks at least to go through everything that's in that. And there's stuff that nobody knew until this paper came out.
Yeah.
But again, let's read this. If elected, Trian said, Peltz and Rasulo will propose a number of reviews of the organizational structure of studios and state of creatives and of studio operations and culture. Trian believes there's an opportunity to find strategic partners for all or some of Disney's non-sports linear assets to maximize value of linear while improving Disney's strategic focus and growth profile. And it is skeptical that a flagship ESPN DTC service is a viable business model given rising sports programming costs and the consumption patterns of sports fans. Now, we don't have time right now to get into the sports aspect.
Sure.
But, Vash, what we do have time to say is that it appears strongly that Trian is trying to improve Disney.
Yes.
And Bob Iger is busy trying to save the legacy that he built. And that's why I think we have these very different methodologies of presenting information. On one side, you have Bob speaking in very vague, esoteric terms about projects that could, would, should, might, maybe, we've got land, who knows what we'll do, but he gets the headlines. And then you have Trian that's putting out 133 pages of incredibly dense, objective data with great specificity. It's two different narrative desires. On one side, Nelson Peltz is trying to convince investors that they should believe their eyes. They should not ignore what's happening with the company. And on the other side, you've got Bob Iger, who's spinning a yarn, right? He says he watches movies 7, 8, 9 times. I think that should strike fear in investors, because why is your CEO watching your movies 6, 7, 8 times? That's abnormal. That's weird. That's not his job. So that should concern you. And on the other side, you've got Nelson Peltz dropping specifics. I mean, we're talking about to such a granular level that you go into this paper and it starts listing out the increase in percentage of downtime for rides at theme parks. That's the kind of information that you would never see, never hear from Disney, ever.
Yeah.
And they've researched it. They've got it. It's amazing. Vash, your final thoughts on this? Where do you think all of this is going? Do you think this is going to have an impact on the vote at all? And what are you wanting to see out of the town hall tomorrow with Nelson Peltz?
What I want to see from Nelson Peltz in the town hall is I want to see him kind of really take Bob Iger to task with the lack of specificity here. Just really kind of, key in on, hey, look, Bob Iger doesn't have a plan. I have a plan. That kind of thing. Really separate yourself out from the pack of, Iger's nominees versus, what I can actually bring to the table, right? I think that's what's really crucial. That's what's really important on the studio thing. Iger seeing these things 3 to 4 times, that is a weird thing. I mean, I don't even have the time to absorb this content, and I don't run the Walt Disney company.
You're the CEO of a company.
It's insane. It's crazy. That was an insane statement.
The movies are a small percentage of your company, and you're
right. I mean, shouldn't you be doing
every film that comes out 9 times?
I mean, the CEO's job is to work out cable deals, with Charter, for example, or large investments in India. What are you doing watching films 3 to 4 times? And by the way, they're that bad even with that. And
I hope he has to ride the new Splash Mountain 7 or 8 times and look at all that brown water.
Well, remember he visited and said, "Oh, this is boring." Apparently, is the rumor that we've heard, right?
That was the leak. Oh,
yeah.
Not a good sign if Bob thinks your project is boring. But
that's
oh
bad.
Man. Well, Vash, let's do this pragmatically.
Please.
Folks, you might sit there and listen to all of this, and you might say, why does this matter? You might say, what is this all about? What are these guys ranting about? And here's what we're trying to say. There was a company that was the leader in entertainment and in creating milestone memories that were part of the American tradition now. You wanted to take your kid to go see Cinderella Castle at least once in their childhood. You wanted to go see Sleeping Beauty Castle. You wanted to walk down Main Street. It was a part of moving from generation to generation. And that took a lot of work for Walt himself to create. And that was passed on decade after decade. And in the time that Bob Iger has been making all of these vapid, empty promises, Universal Studios has built a theme park that will probably place them at number 1 now in Florida. First time ever. And what does Disney do in response? Well, they destroy the most beloved attraction on the planet, and they give us a lot of pretty-looking pictures and paintings that never come to fruition. And meanwhile, Universal Studios is building stuff, building theme parks all over the world. Now, I can do that with every sector right now of Disney, outside of Disney Cruise Lines, which I think is good. But every other sector of Disney, I can point to the same thing. Question is, how much longer will investors listen to these empty promises that Bob Iger makes and never fulfills? That's the question. That's why this matters. That's why we're talking today, is because we've watched a great company that was part of the American fabric of childhood abdicate the throne.
As my friend Marty Snyder said, my eyes work a lot better than my ears do, right? And we've seen this company decline, like you were saying right there, and we can't listen to any more of the noise, because that's just what it is. These empty promises, these unfulfilled statements, this, and Iger says, "Oh, I'm optimistic about the future of the company." Oh, is that why you sold a majority of your stocks and holdings? Because you're so optimistic, right? You have no skin in the game, and neither do these board members, and they don't want any skin in the game. They understand where this company is at, and nobody seems compelled to turn this ship around. And the two guys that are saying, "Hey, look, listen, please let us go on the board. Let us help. Let's do something right here." We have to keep them at all costs. I mean, it really is unfortunate. It's and you're kind of seeing even the pixie dusters, even with the Avatar thing and everything like that. People are saying, "You know what? Not this time."
Show me. Mm-hmm. Right. The whole Disney fan community out there needs to become the show me state.
Yep.
Become the show me state. Make him show you. Make them break ground before you get excited.
Absolutely.
Because you are becoming addicted to esoteric nonsense. So quit being addicted to dreams and start being addicted to seeing things happen on the scene. That's what you need to do. Otherwise, you're going to be falling behind Universal Studios over and over. And again, I'll remind folks that if you were critical of what Bob Iger does, if you did hold his feet to the fire, then you wouldn't get stuff like this. You might get Tiana's Bayou Adventure, but it would look more like the concept art and less like an overgrown septic tank.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, that's the video for today. We hope you enjoyed it. It's a little different, but you know what? We enjoy going into depth when it comes to explaining what's going on with Disney, and we'll continue to do so. Don't forget that the Nelson Peltz Town Hall, and boy, oh boy, is that going to be something, is tomorrow, Thursday, March 7th. Coverage begins with Culture Casino and the 6 Minute Daily, which will come out a little bit early, followed by That Park Place Live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Coverage will then go to Valiant Renegade with a special Renegade Online show at noon Eastern. You don't want to miss a minute of this. Oh my gosh, the fireworks, they may fly. Folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms, hit the notification bell, drop a comment down below, let us know your thoughts. Make sure to check out Vash Sky and Jonas J. Campbell on our sister channel, That Park Place, where they focus a wee bit more on theme parks than we do here, but we venture into that territory often as well. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun. Hey folks, it's a big week coming up this week. Tuesday at noon Eastern, the Pro Show is covering the Town Hall with Bob Iger question and answer session live starting at noon Eastern. You do not want to miss it. Then on Thursday, don't miss out on That Park Place Live as they begin preview coverage of the Town Hall with Nelson Peltz and with Jay Rasulo, former CFO of the Walt Disney Company, as well as the Town Hall that will be coming up with them. Questions and answers there for the Trian group. Then at noon Eastern, coverage to Valiant Renegade, where it will take place, covering it live again. Don't miss a moment of it, folks. And don't forget Midnight's Edge also at noon Eastern, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll see you there.